Welcome to Payback with Silas. Every day, a new story, lies, betrayal, payback. Let's begin.
Have you ever had the ground ripped out from under your feet when you thought you were standing on solid rock? Like the work you poured your heart and soul into, the ideas you believed would change everything, suddenly meant nothing? That was me last Thursday in Asheville, North Carolina. Sitting in a glass-walled conference room, watching Cordelia Frost, the woman who was supposed to be my boss, tell me I was uncreative. That all my effort was worthless. My name's Elias Marlowe. I'm 35 years old, and I've spent the last 2 years working harder than I ever thought possible. I led the development of a product line that went from concept to market domination in under 6 months. It wasn't just successful, it was revolutionary for the company. Our sales soared, our brand buzzed, and the whole marketing team was riding the wave I helped create. I thought that meant something. I thought it meant I mattered. But apparently, I was wrong. Cordelia sat there across the table from me, her icy blue eyes unreadable, like she was delivering a verdict instead of feedback. "Elias," she said slowly, as if testing the words before they left her mouth. "We appreciate your contributions, but the truth is, we need a fresh perspective. Someone with real creativity. You've been reliable, yes, but predictable. And in this business, predictability is the enemy of innovation." Predictable. That word hit me like a punch to the gut. Predictable. After all those brainstorming sessions, the all-nighters spent tweaking designs and packaging. After the presentations to the board, the countless revisions, the pressure, the sweat, the sacrifice. All reduced to one dismissive word. "I created the product line that's currently outperforming everything we've done before," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "The market response has been overwhelming." Cordelia smiled, but it was a tight, cold smile. "Sales aren't everything. We're not looking for someone who just follows formulas or repeats past successes. We want someone who reinvents the game, not just plays it safe. It's time for you to step aside." I wanted to scream, to argue, to plead my case, but I knew it was pointless. She had made up her mind. And just like that, the company that had been my home and my battlefield turned its back on me. I packed up my laptop and my notebooks, every prototype sketch and concept document tucked away like precious memories. I left the office with my head held high, but inside, the fire was just beginning to burn brighter. As I drove home through the winding roads near the Blue Ridge Mountains, the night sky stretched above me, full of stars. I realized something crucial. This wasn't the end. It was a challenge. A call to prove them all wrong. And prove them wrong I would. That night, after Cordelia's cold dismissal, I thought I would finally get some rest. But sleep didn't come. My mind raced through every detail of the meeting, her words echoing in my head like a cruel mantra. "We need fresh creativity. You're predictable." I kept asking myself, was I really so predictable? Had I lost my spark without even noticing? Or was this just her way of pushing me out? I tried to shut the doubts down. I told myself I was more than just a cog in their machine. I was a creator. A visionary. Someone who didn't need their approval to make a difference. Around 2 a.m., my phone lit up. The caller ID flashed a name I never wanted to see again, Cordelia Frost. I hesitated. Should I answer? Part of me wanted to ignore the call, to sleep through the storm. But curiosity and, honestly, a lingering sense of pride pulled me to swipe. "Accept." "Elias." Her voice was tense, almost shaking with fury. "You took the prototypes. The documents. How dare you? That intellectual property belongs to the company." I remained calm, letting her vent. "Cordelia, I took what I created. The ideas, the work, I am the creator. You can't own that. Not the passion or the vision behind it." There was a long silence. Then she hissed through the line. "You don't understand the consequences. This could be legal. You'll regret this." But I wasn't scared. Not anymore. I had already lost the illusion that they valued me. And now, I had something far more valuable than their empty praise, my own belief in what I could build. I hung up, heart pounding but steady. I looked around my apartment in Asheville, the sketches pinned to my walls, the laptop humming with potential. Everything I needed was here. That call was a warning. But to me, it was confirmation. I had the spark, the fire, the freedom. And the night was only beginning. The morning after Cordelia's furious call, I woke up with a strange mix of exhaustion and resolve. It felt like I'd just crossed a threshold, one where the old world was behind me, and the unknown stretched ahead. I knew I had to act fast. My fresh perspective was exactly what Cordelia claimed to want. But she wanted it on her terms. I was about to show her what fresh really meant, on mine. The first challenge was simple but brutal. I had no company backing. No team, no budget, no marketing department to push my ideas. Just me, my designs, and a cramped corner in my apartment overlooking Asheville's Smoky Mountains. I started by sketching. Hours passed in a blur of pencil strokes and coffee cups. Every detail mattered: the shape, the colors, the story behind each product. I wasn't just recreating what I had done before. I was evolving it. Sharpening the edges. Making it undeniably mine. Next, I reached out to old contacts, manufacturers I'd met during trade shows, freelancers who owed me favors, and a handful of indie retailers hungry for something new. Some said no immediately. Others were skeptical. But a few saw the spark and wanted in. By the end of the week, I had a small but dedicated team assembled. We rented a tiny workspace in an old converted warehouse in West Asheville, rustic, raw, but full of character. It was nothing fancy, but it was ours. Every night, after hours, I poured my energy into perfecting the product line. I tested prototypes until they felt flawless, negotiated deals until the margins made sense, and wrote marketing pitches that told the story of resilience, creativity, and fresh vision. I wasn't just rebuilding a product line, I was building a brand. One that wouldn't bend to corporate whims or cold dismissals. One that spoke with authenticity, passion, and grit. And with every small victory, I felt my confidence grow. Cordelia's words, predictable, uncreative, they became fuel rather than chains. By the time a month had passed, the first batch of products was ready. And I was ready to show the world what fresh truly meant. The day of our first product launch felt like standing on the edge of a cliff, ready to jump into unknown waters. Our little team in that dusty West Asheville warehouse had worked around the clock. Every detail, from packaging to the website design, was a reflection of who I was now: bold, unshackled, and determined. I named the brand Brook and Ridge, a nod to strategy and the rugged mountains that inspired me. The products were smart, minimalist, but with a character that stood out in a sea of blandness. The launch was humble. No splashy marketing budgets, no big-name endorsements, just a handful of social media posts, emails to contacts, and a few local indie stores who had trusted me. I remember sitting in front of my laptop late into the night, refreshing the order page, heart pounding with every new notification. The first few sales trickled in slowly. Then, something shifted. Word began to spread, through friends, niche blogs, and small communities that appreciated quality and authenticity over flash and hype. What struck me was not just the numbers but the messages I received. Emails from customers saying how much they appreciated the design, how the product fit their lifestyle perfectly, how they finally felt someone understood what they wanted. Each message was a reminder that this wasn't just business. It was a movement. But success wasn't handed to me. Every day brought new challenges: supply chain hiccups, late shipments, budget constraints that meant choosing which bills to pay first. I learned to negotiate harder, to be relentless with vendors, to stretch every dollar. I called Cordelia's words to mind, predictable, and smiled. I was anything but. By the end of the first quarter, Rook and Ridge had a small but fiercely loyal customer base, and my team had doubled. I was no longer just Elias Marlowe, the man who got fired. I was Elias Marlowe, the founder, the creator, the fresh perspective. And this was only the beginning. Just as things started to take shape with Rook and Ridge, the past came knocking again. Not with kindness or curiosity, but with a storm of anger and threats. About 2 months after the launch, I got an unexpected email. From Cordelia Frost. The subject line was blunt. Cease and desist. She accused me of stealing company property, breaching contracts, and threatened legal action if I didn't stop using the designs and intellectual property I had taken. The language was cold, precise, and meant to intimidate. At first, I felt a wave of panic, old doubts creeping in like shadows at dusk. But then I remembered every late night, every risk I took, every prototype I refined with my own hands. Those were my ideas, my labor. I called my lawyer, a sharp but pragmatic woman named Jessica Calhoun, who had worked with startups and creative minds before. She reviewed the documents carefully and said something that lifted a weight off my chest. Elias, the designs and concepts you developed belong to you. Unless there was a signed agreement transferring ownership to your old company, they have no claim. They might try to scare you, but they don't have the grounds. Her confidence gave me strength. I decided not to engage publicly. No tweets, no press releases. I wanted to prove with results, not legal drama. But internally I prepared. I tightened security around my work, kept every file encrypted and backed up. I instructed my team to be cautious with communications. We weren't going to back down. That shadow of the past was a test, a reminder of how low people could go when threatened. Yet every day I focused on building, creating, expanding Rook and Ridge, turning that fear into fuel. Because I knew one thing for sure, my future wasn't defined by threats, but by vision. Building a company is never a solo journey. I quickly realized that to survive and thrive, I needed more than just a product line. I needed people who believed in what I was doing. People who weren't just employees, but comrades in a shared mission. In Asheville, the creative spirit runs deep, and the community here is tight-knit. I started attending local meetups, small business forums, and even unconventional networking events where artists, designers, and entrepreneurs gathered. I wasn't just looking for collaborators. I was searching for my tribe. One chilly autumn evening, I found myself at a warehouse-turned-art gallery called The Forge, where innovators showcased their crafts. It was there I met Maya Linden, a brilliant graphic designer with a taste for bold minimalism and a rebellious streak that matched my own. Maya wasn't just talented, she had vision. Together, we reimagined the Rook and Ridge brand identity, refining its voice and visual language to be unmistakably authentic and unapologetically fresh. But Maya wasn't the only one. I connected with a former marketing exec named Jordan Vale, who had left corporate America to chase purpose over paychecks. Jordan's savvy helped us craft campaigns that resonated deeply with our audience, real people tired of faceless brands and empty promises. With every new person, the company culture grew stronger. We weren't a startup. We were a movement. A band of misfits who had been underestimated, overlooked, and written off, but who refused to be silenced. Our small warehouse echoed with laughter, brainstorming, debates, and moments of breakthrough. The energy was electric. I felt alive. For the first time since that brutal day with Cordelia, I knew I was exactly where I belong. By the time we hit our 6-month mark, Rook and Ridge wasn't just a fledgling brand, it was a serious contender. Our customer base grew steadily, with glowing reviews and organic word-of-mouth spreading like wildfire through niche communities. Every milestone felt like a quiet victory. I watched those numbers climb, monthly revenue doubling, then tripling. We secured partnerships with a few boutique retailers in Asheville and even managed to get shelf space in a trendy Seattle store. Our online presence blossomed, driven by Jordan's savvy strategies and Maya's bold visuals. But what made it all sweeter was knowing exactly who I was doing this for. Not just myself, but every person who'd ever been told they weren't good enough, creative enough, or worthy of their dreams. Meanwhile, Cordelia and her company? I heard whispers. Rumors of internal shakeups, stagnant growth, and restless shareholders. I didn't need to check the news to know my old company was watching. They had wanted freshness. They got it, just not from me, at least not anymore. One evening, as I wrapped up an interview with a local business magazine, my phone buzzed. It was Cordelia. She sounded different. Cooler. Calculated. "Elias, congratulations. I hear your new venture is doing well." I smiled, though she couldn't see it. "Thanks, Cordelia. Funny how things work out." Her voice dropped. "We underestimated you. Maybe we should have kept you." I leaned back in my chair. "Maybe. But I guess you wanted fresh." She didn't reply. That call wasn't a threat or a demand. It was acknowledgement. Respect buried beneath years of corporate coldness. Success was my best revenge. Not in bitterness or spite, but in proof. Proof that I was more than a label, more than a dismissal. I had taken my ideas, my vision, and built something real. Something lasting. And in that, I was victorious. 6 months in, Rook and Ridge had found its rhythm, but the real challenge was just starting. Growth brings excitement, sure, but also pressure, risks, and hard choices. I knew the stakes were higher now. Orders were flooding in from new markets, California, New York, even some European retailers showing interest. That was incredible, but fulfilling demand on that scale meant scaling fast, and scaling smart. I had to stretch our modest resources without breaking the quality, or losing the brand's soul. I spent countless hours negotiating with suppliers, trying to get better pricing without compromising materials. Some said no. Some pushed back hard. I learned how to be firm, persuasive, and sometimes ruthless, all without losing the integrity I'd built. At the same time, my small team grew. We brought in people with expertise in logistics, finance, and customer service. I was no longer just a creator. I was a CEO juggling spreadsheets, contracts, and strategic planning. There were nights I lay awake, wondering if I could handle it all. The weight of responsibility felt enormous. But I reminded myself why I started. Not to replicate corporate life, but to build something honest, something mine. One particularly tough day, we had a shipment delayed due to a factory error. Retailers were frustrated. Customers were asking for refunds. The pressure was crushing. Instead of panicking, I took a deep breath and called every stakeholder personally. I owned the problem, explained the situation, and promised swift solutions. Some pushed back, but most appreciated the transparency. That crisis became a turning point. It taught me that leadership wasn't about avoiding problems but facing them head-on, with honesty and grit. By the end of the year, Rook and Ridge had doubled in size again. Our products were featured in a major lifestyle magazine, and I was invited to speak at a conference for emerging entrepreneurs. Through it all, the lessons I'd learned after that cold dismissal echoed louder than ever: resilience, creativity, and the courage to keep moving forward. I was no longer the man Cordelia dismissed. I was a founder, a leader, and a fresh perspective that no one could ignore. Success can be intoxicating, but it also has a sneaky way of inviting doubt. About 9 months into scaling Rook and Ridge, I found myself staring at my reflection late one night, wondering if I was fooling everyone, including myself. The pressure to keep growing, to innovate faster, to stay ahead was relentless. Every new product launch had to outdo the last. Every deal had to be bigger and better. The stakes felt enormous, and with them, the fear of failure crept in. I started second-guessing my decisions. Was I stretching the brand too thin? Could I keep up with demand without losing quality? What if this was just a lucky streak, and soon the whole thing would collapse? Those nights were the hardest. Alone in my apartment, surrounded by sketches and spreadsheets, I felt the weight of expectations crushing down. But then I remembered why I started. I thought back to that moment when Cordelia told me I lacked creativity. I wasn't just building a company. I was proving a point. To her, to the industry, and most importantly, to myself. I took a step back and reconnected with my tribe, Maya, Jordan, and the team who believed in the mission. Their passion reignited mine. We brainstormed new ideas, refined our values, and reminded ourselves what made Rook and Ridge different. It wasn't just about flashy products or rapid growth. It was about authenticity, resilience, and fresh perspectives, the very things Cordelia claimed I didn't have. That night, I promised myself to lean into the doubt rather than run from it. To let it fuel innovation instead of fear. Because true creativity isn't about never failing, it's about rising stronger every time. It's been over 2 years since that glass conference room in Asheville where Cordelia Frost told me I lacked creativity and had to step aside. Since then, I'd built something far more powerful than a product line or a job title. I built freedom. Rook and Ridge isn't just a company anymore, it's a statement. A symbol of what happens when you refuse to be boxed in by someone else's definition of your worth. Looking back, I see now that her words were never about me. They were about fear. Fear of change, of losing control, of fresh ideas that can't be managed or predicted. Today, I wake up excited, surrounded by people who inspire me every day. Maya's designs continue to push boundaries. Jordan's campaigns break new ground. Our team works like a family united by one purpose. We're expanding internationally, collaborating with artisans in Europe, launching eco-friendly lines, and giving back to the community that raised us. And through it all, I stay grounded in the lesson that started it all. Creativity isn't a trait you either have or don't. It's a choice, every single day, to keep pushing, to keep believing. Last week, I received an unexpected email. From Cordelia. This time, it wasn't about threats or demands. It was a simple note. Elias, I see you. You were right. I smiled, feeling no bitterness, only peace. Because success is sweetest when it's earned on your own terms. When dignity is kept intact, no matter what. When you walk away from a door slammed in your face, and build a new one, wide open. And that's exactly what I did.